everyone, it's me, Mike from It's a Podcast, and welcome to a brand new series that we're introducing to the channel, a kind of 101 beginner's guide into gaming and all the things that encompasses. This series is going to focus on MMO terminology. With Corepunk round the corner, as you can see, our content has been based around Corepunk. We're so excited to be jumping into that universe, and as many of you will be as well, but some of us are new to it, and some of us may not understand the terminologies, the words that may be chucked around during voice chats, and also on the wiki pages and stuff. You know, when someone's shouting at you down Discord, quick, you need to jump on those ads, what does that mean? And this series is designed for that very purpose. It's breaking down those terminologies so we understand them better. So when we hear them in the games, and when we see them around the gaming sphere, we understand what that means. It makes our gaming experience better, and it allows you to enjoy the game better overall for everyone involved. So without further ado, we're going to jump in. There are 9 terminologies in this, and we're going to go through each one individually with a small breakdown so you understand better, and then you can apply that to your gaming knowledge. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first up, we have the term stun. Now, what does stun mean in an MMO sense? Well, what stun means, basically someone will have used an attack that will not only, if you were casting a spell, interrupt that. So if you were casting a fireball and you're halfway through and you're about to evoke the magic and you get stunned, you will stop dead in your tracks. What this will also mean is that you cannot then cast a spell whilst you are stunned. You also can't use basic attacks whilst you're stunned. And also, being stunned, you can't move either. Now, the important thing to remember with stun and the differentiation between this and other terminologies and crowd control that we'll come across is that when you take damage while stunned, you will not come out of your stun. There is literally nothing you can do. This is such a powerful kind of crowd control that we'll explore within MMOs and obviously within Corepunk. So if you are stunned, be prepared to take a bit of damage and feel pretty useless for a bit. On the flip side though, if you're stunning someone, take advantage of it. Next up, we've got sleep. Who doesn't love sleep? I love sleeping, but in an MMO sense, sleeping's not as cool as it is in real life. And the reason for that is because it probably happens at a very inappropriate time, usually in the midst of a battle. Now, the difference between sleep and other mechanics that are used for crowd control is sleep generally, when you are casting asleep, will take a bit of time. It's not instantaneous. Imagine someone singing a nice lullaby to you. It's going to take a few seconds before you nod off to dreamland. Now, the difference between sleep and other things like stun is that, okay, you cannot move, cannot cast spells, and you cannot do basic attacks. But the difference between sleep and something like a stun is if you get damaged, it's going to wake you up. Quite a rude awakening. Well, imagine falling asleep mid-battle and then suddenly having a fireball to your face. You're going to wake up, it's going to hurt. So that's what sleep is in an MMO sense. Immobilization is next up on the list. And what does immobilization mean? Well, in an MMO sense and in Corepunk, what that will mean is you can't move. You are rooted to where you are at that moment. Now, where this differs from other crowd control is you can still cast spells, you can still do damage with your basic attacks. You kind of have all your faculties about you, with the exception of your legs probably don't work. Next up, we have silence, a thing my real life friends wish they could cast on me sometimes. But what does it mean in a gaming sense? You still have your faculties, you can still move, you can still do everything you usually would, except you don't have your voice, and usually things like spells require you to chant or read from a dusty old tomb. And if you can't speak, you can't cast the spells. So in an MMO sense, is basically any kind of cast that maybe you would use, you can't use whilst you're silenced. And the other thing is you can't complain about it because, hey, guess what? You ain't got a voice. Now we come to fear. We've all experienced this in real life, but what does it mean in an MMO sense? Fear in an MMO sense is kind of the same. Your character is instilled with fear for whatever reason, whether it's a blood-curdling roar from an orc, or whether it's some kind of weird voodoo magic from a kind of lich hidden in the corner. Fear basically makes you run away in a game. So if you are facing the enemy, they instill fear, you will move in the most direct path away from that person or that entity that has created the fear for a duration of time. So basically, if you're feared, you're gonna run away for a bit, and then you might get brave again and go back and beat them. Up next we've got disarm. Disarm means basically anything that you had in your hands, no longer have in your hands for the time period that it is affecting. So basically, if you have a sword, a bow, a staff, a dagger, imagine those being slung to the floor, thrown to one side for that duration. Now, whilst this may not be shown in animation within the game, it acts as if that is what is happening. So your base attacks you can't do during the time whilst you are disarmed. So just picture it being on the floor, and then you valiantly pick it back up afterwards and start slashing at your enemies once again. Charm, charm, charm. A wonderful thing in real life. Oh, to be charmed. I never get charmed in real life. I do get charmed in games, however. Not quite the same thing, unfortunately. Charming in a game generally means swap to the other side and do their bidding for a bit because you're infatuated with them. So whoever inflicts the charm on you, suddenly you're on their team. 1 minute you're swiping your sword at them, the next minute you're throwing daggers at your own mate, and then you snap out of the charm and you wonder what you're doing. You have to live with that. So up next is blindness. Now, blindness in a gaming sense means something a bit different from how the real world application is. Whilst you're blind within an MMO or in a game, you can still see what's on the screen. However, the character you are playing cannot. So if they are drawing back their bow and loosen an arrow, they're gonna miss. If they are gonna swing with a sword, they are gonna miss. If you are casting a huge fireball, hey, guess what? You're gonna miss. Blindness means whilst you can still see what's going on, you still can move and you still kind of have your faculties other than your eyesight. Basically, your attacks are going to miss whilst you are blind for that duration. And finally, we have Taunt. What does Taunt mean in a gaming sense? Basically, it means you're the centre of attention, but just to the enemy. Doesn't sound as good as it initially appears, but it can actually be very valuable to the party. So basically, you become the hitting stick for all the enemy's spells, attacks, and everything that they can conjure up and throw at your party. What this means is that generally, you will be the focus of your team's healing if you have good support as well. So a taunt is basically if you see your friend getting hit and you don't want them to get hit, then you shout and you taunt and they will turn their attention to you. So there we have it. We're at the end of our journey now of our Corepunk/MMO Terminology 101. Hopefully this will give you the confidence that when you see these terminologies within the gaming sphere, it's a bit less daunting and you have a better understanding of what that actually means for you whilst you're playing. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you do, give us a like, subscribe, join our Discord, do all the good stuff, and hopefully we will see you next time on another 101. But until then, take care. Goodbye.